Today's readings connect, which they often don't. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go." Genesis 12 and Romans 4 present Abraham as our father in faith. Jesus said to him, "Follow me." Matthew 9 introduces us to Levi, who hears the call of God as Jesus tells him to follow. In Genesis, we've reached the end of the beginning history, where human beings have made a hash of living in God's good world and have been sent in different directions so that they experience something of the consequences of wishing to be and trying to be God. Now begin the stories of the foundations of Israel. These stories are not tidily written in books or even heavy clay tablets that were carted around with people as they travelled. These were stories told around campfires and passed on generation to generation with new insights added along the way. Stories told on special occasions to remind the people that they were part of a covenant community based upon God's call to which Abram responded. And finally, long years after what is remembered and told was written down in the form we use today. We need to go back a couple of verses and see that Sarai was barren, for whatever reason, naturally, humanly unable to have children, and already old as the journey begins. In the culture of the day, children were the security for the future. Abram has no natural children, no sons to carry on the family line or to care for him in his very old age. He has no security other than a large extended family around him, and we discover that he leaves even this behind. Abram lived in a culture of many gods. Ur and Haran were centres of worship for the moon god. How did he recognise the voice of another god as the voice of truth and hope that would lead him into a new future? We don't know, but he did. Abram's faith was not to believe the right things about God, or to know lots of theology or Bible or whatever. Abram trusted himself to the voice of God and obeyed. That is faith, a relationship of trust that leads us into the unknown future. If we think of common sense, there seems to be none in Abram's response. All of us resist the new. We are afraid of what we cannot control, or of those who are different from us, and of our powerlessness in the face of what seems impossible. Abram leaves home and its certainties, custom and comfort, family and friends, all regularity and rhythm of life. The only thing he could take with him into the journey was memory of what had been. Why go? What he knew was replaced by ignorance. What he had with what he did not have, the known with the unknown, the familiar with the totally strange. It was this willingness to trust that enabled God to offer Abram a new future. Abram was promised offspring, children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, on and on beyond count, who would be the future. And all this before covenant was made or circumcision offered as a sign, and long before the law was given through Moses. Throughout the Abram stories, this promise is repeated until, out of human inability, Sarah's barrenness, God creates the future with the birth of Isaac. For Israel, the connection was one of blood, of kinship handed down through the generations, a certainty that they were physically children of Abraham who share the promises of God. They are the great nation created by God's word and faithfulness. Paul argues that everyone who trusts the voice of God as it comes to us in Jesus and has faith is included in that great family of Abraham. Again, it is not right belief that brings life, but the right relationship offered in Jesus that brings hope for the future. and the possibility of new beginnings. Those who trust themselves to God through Jesus the Christ, who lived, died, and was raised from death by God, share in the same relationship that Abram knew. They are righteous, in a right relationship with God. They are justified, set free from anything in life that separates them from God, and especially the impossible demands of the law. And it doesn't matter if those who believe are Jews or Gentiles. All who receive Jesus as God's word for now and for the future are truly Abraham's children, the ones who share in the covenant and are called to be a blessing for others. Matthew introduces us to Levi. He is an outsider, a tax collector who is unable to keep the law, always excluded because of impurity and collaboration with the Gentile invaders. An ordinary person surviving in a difficult situation. He would have been despised by the religious people of his day, the last person they would have expected to be tuned into God's voice. But he heard the call of Jesus, and he got up and left behind his income and profession to go, he had no idea where. Just like Abram. Just like us when we recognize and respond to the call of God upon our lives. There are no perfect maps for the journey, just the certainty that God will not lead us into dead ends. Even if the journey is hard, if we face testing and failure and everything seems lost, if we can trust God to be God, we can know that our future is safe and we can keep on moving forward. And if we take time to read the Abram story, we can take heart that even when we get it wrong and do stupid things, God is still with us. None of us, even those who seem closest to God, ever get it completely right. Sometimes it's really hard to discern the voice of God when there are so many other voices wanting our attention and loyalty. But it's possible. So let's take time to know the Bible, cultivate our relationship with God through prayer and other disciplines, choose ways of living that sit well with our understanding of God, who is love and faithfulness, and connect with others who are on the journey too. That way, we have better skills for recognizing the voice of God when God comes. But also, be ready for the unexpected. Think of Abram, comfortable in Haran. Think of Paul on a journey to Damascus. Remember Levi, going about his everyday responsibilities, and be ready for the future that God leads us into. Abram's story is important because it helps us understand our own journey with God, with its highs and lows and our ignorance of where things might lead us. It's the uncertainty of our journey that often pushes us towards change so that God can continue to speak to us and through us. If you're trying to weigh up if there's any truth in all of this, think back and remember when you were first facing the reality of no full-time minister at your place. What did it feel like setting out on something new? Where are you and how do you feel this far into the journey? Take heart. Abram went into strange places and found God. We can too.